Let me get the dashboard pulled up, and then I can do my own little intro. If I can see the chat. I cannot see the chat. How do I do that? Okay. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Let's get into
Good,
the
man.
kind of I kind of want to get into that first topic, and everybody that's joining right now, welcome to In the Spotlight. We have Complexity's head coach Ruin and Complexity's IGL Valyn. Um, Great players, great coach, great team. How you doing, Pranix? But let's get into that first question that you already asked, Traumist. Was the original question that you were asking right there? It was a super interesting one, actually.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, I saw you guys were tweeting about being at a Cole facility. Looked really dope. And you guys basically had a story of like, you said you guys weren't all vaccinated. You had like a quarantine period. Your story about that?
Yeah, so none of us are vaccinated as far as I know. Even still, I don't know that anyone's gotten it. But the main thing is that we all took a quarantine period when we got there, which took about, I want to say we all had to get tested before we got on our flight. And then once we landed in Texas, we were all in separate hotel rooms for the first like 4 or 5 days. We got tested again, and then once that second test cleared, then we were allowed to like be together in like the facility. So up until that point, we had to do stuff like stagger our arrival and departure times from the facility because it was within walking distance, at least for some of us. Um, and then we were all in separate rooms. Up until that point as well. For like the first 5 days, we were all in just separate offices. I had my own little office. There have enough rooms where and enough computers where like we were able to just spread out throughout the facility. So that's mostly what we did. And then
Yeah.
like there's a whole thing with Jonah because Jonah's Canadian. I don't know if you know anything about how the border's going right now, but it's a whole process to get out of Canada to the United States and then back into Canada. It's a whole thing. So we had to deal with that too. He had to get extra tests and stuff like that.
Wow.
But yeah, so probably the first week we didn't like that we were there. We were all basically just either living in a hotel room or just in like an own isolated little office, on our
Playing
own.
adjacently, but kind of together.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could see each Yeah. other like in passing. Like you come in and you walk down the hall,
Yeah.
you can like wave at people, but you couldn't go like talk to them or anything really.
Just imagine you guys like through the glass, like putting your hands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How long
But
were you
then
guys
once
there
we got
for? You
to all
said
hang
3 weeks.
out, it was amazing. Like we were all, really excited to
Yeah, yeah,
finally get to play next to each other. Yeah, it was
Is it
3 weeks
a
long, the boot camp.
yeah? And did you play any tournaments online? I guess you said you hadn't been there for a while, but you guys were just scrimming.
So we played three. We played
Mhm.
VCT where we lost to Gen G. We beat we were supposed to play Knights and the Knights lost to Elmer's Glue, I think their name is. And then we beat
Yeah.
them and then we lost to Gen G. And then we played an NSG tournament, the Nerd Street guys, one of their like weeklies, and we lost to Knights in that tournament, I think. And then we played or no, The the Knights NSG one. 5K. Then we played the Knights 5K, and then we lost to Sonics in the finals, the Australian team.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it seems like I guess you guys improved a lot during that boot camp because it seemed like I saw you guys' match history and it was kind of just like win, 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 like finals
Yeah,
to
exactly.
semifinals, loss, like lost to Gen G. So I guess did the boot camp help a lot in terms of like creating synergy and stuff like that?
I Yeah, definitely so think like so. yeah, I was gonna say the boot camp, like from our players' perspective, like being with your teammates is like an entirely different game. Because like you just have that confidence the whole time, and it's a lot easier. Like if you're having like a rough match, or if one of your teammates is having a rough match, you can like pick each other up, and you kind of keep like the vibes flowing, and you're like never tired. You're like full focus the whole time. So it was definitely a buff, and like the little fist bump buff. So
Yeah,
it was definitely like an experience, and it helped the team a lot. And like even playing online now, like from each other's homes, the vibes feel a lot better because like we met in person. So like that boot camp was very like in my opinion like very crucial for the team because like that helped us kind of hit that next level and like broke the barrier we were at the time. So yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you guys had like a really clean tournament one recently, and Was that the NSG one, the Summer Open, or was it
That was a community gaming.
the Community Gaming
It's run
Premier? Yeah,
by
yeah,
this guy Chris G and MLG Anakin are the
yeah.
two guys that
Cool
run that
guys.
event.
There's just so many
Yeah, they're great.
tournaments in Tier 2. I get them all
Yeah,
mixed up.
there's and I didn't even know about this one. I actually got messaged by Upmind. He hit me up in my DMs. It was like, "Hey, there's a tournament if you want to join it." And I was like, "I don't know anything about this, but yeah, I mean, if it's like a tier 2 tournament, like might as well play it. Like we're free." So,
Mhm.
And Valyn, you've played sports, right? From just what I've talked to you briefly, or you're around sports. The feeling of when you fist bump teammates or like that, in like real life when you're actually around teammates and you're hugging them or fist bump or whatever after chest bump after a big win or a big shot or whatever. Is that the same
Yeah,
feeling at LAN to some degree when it comes to like the experience you had?
definitely. Like when we were beating, like when we had close matches and we were like, battling it out, and it was close and we finally won. It was like, because I played football like my whole entire like high school. So like it was that similar feeling, like competitive nature with your teammates. So it was really, really fun to be there, and like it helped a lot. So to answer your question, like yeah, it was the same thing basically, I would say.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to get both of yours kind of origin stories of Ruin, how did you get into coaching? Fallon, you're really young and you're in IGL, so I kind of wanted to know both of your stories about how you got to where you are now.
okay, you want to go first, Jake, or you want me to go first?
You can go first.
So I started out as a player. I'll try to keep it brief because I played competitively for over 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, I started in ESCA Open in 2008 as a CS:GO player. Or CS:GO. It was CS 1.6 back then. Playing
Mhm.
with even like AGM was on like my second team ever. Um, and then played forever, made it to MDL in CS:GO, played MDL for probably like 2 years. And then I kind of felt like I hit like a plateau where like I was in college full time. I was working part time. There wasn't a point in my career where I wasn't working and going to school, and like I wasn't that good. Like I was decent, but I wasn't like Stewie 2K where I'm just like rising up the ladder instantly. And I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
played for about 2 years. I'm kind of at the same spot that I was 2 years ago. I'm like a little better, but the way it works is like everybody gets better all the time. So
Right.
like you have to keep improving just to stay in the same place. Like if you're not always improving, you're falling behind. So I was like, I'm kind of holding my own, but I'm not really, making it very far. I was constantly like just short of playoffs, like going like 9-7 in Premier, not making playoffs. And I had one or two teams get relegated where like we just fall apart mid-season. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to keep playing. I was a very dedicated player, even with everything. I was putting in like 40 hours a week at least. Um, and it was just hard. It was a lot of
Yeah. On top of
commitment.
school and a job. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the reward I was getting, I was like, this just isn't worth it. Like I like playing with people and like a team and stuff, but I was like, I just need a break. So I just quit.
Mhm.
Like at the end of our season, I think we got relegated. And I was like, yeah, I'm just done. Like I just don't want to do this anymore. And then about I want to say like the whole off season went by, which is like a month and a half. And then some of my friends who had been teammates with in the past, they hit me up and they're like, "Hey, do you want to coach us?" And just like kind of for fun. Like we don't really need a coach. Like we have a good IGL, but like if you just want to sit in on scrims and if you see anything we're doing stupid, like call it out, like go for it. And I was like, yeah, you know what, that could be fun. Like just
Mhm.
kind of hang out with my friends is how I viewed it. Like I'll just get to spend time with people that I haven't talked to in a little bit. And then so I did that, and that was what we became known as Premier Rejects because of a person who I'm friends with, who I'm not going to name. They shit talked this team at LAN, and they said, "Oh, you guys are just a bunch of Premier Rejects." So they made that their team name in the MDL
That's
season.
funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So we ended up making playoffs, and we lost to Splice, and then we got signed by CLG. We became CLG Academy, and then after them, I went to Swole Patrol, which was like Freakazoid, Cooper, Ryan, Zelsis, and Silent. And then after that, I coached Gorilla Gang for like a month, which was like Hydrex, Vanity, Ryan. Oh God, I'm blanking. OC and someone else. I can't remember right now.
That's
Yeah, I've
funny.
been around a while. So, and then after that, I was like, after the Swole Patrol thing, where I coached them full time, I was out of school at that point. I graduated. I wasn't working. I was just living at home. I coached them full time for like 4 months. They ended up dropping me as their coach right as we qualified for WESG, where I'm like getting excited. I'm going to a LAN in China. Like it's $1 million LAN. Like it's the same or more money than like a major even. And
Yeah.
then like a month before it, they're like, yeah, we just don't want to coach. Like, just not going to work out. And I didn't really get like a good reason why. And like, it was one of those things where it's like you get a Steam message at like 3 a.m. and they're like, yeah, you're done. And it's like, oh, that didn't leave me with like a good feeling.
Yeah.
So I actually completely quit. Basically, I tried getting like something going with Gorilla Gang or Swap, like that's what they were called at the time. They eventually became Singularity. And I was like, well, these guys are good, but it's probably going to be at least a year until they make pro. It's like I don't have a year. Like I was 26 or 27. Like I don't have a year to do this unpaid. I just don't. I've got bills to pay. Like, I just don't have the time. So I just quit. After that, it didn't work out. And so from 2018 until 7 months ago or 8 months ago, I was just working. I was living my life. And then Valorant came out. Mike, he's like my best friend, AGM. He told me like, hey, you should really, look into this game. It's, blowing up. It's a competitor to CS. And so I've watched a bunch of their tournaments because they were entering tournaments all the time. And it's like, well, even if I don't enjoy the game that much right now, at least I get to watch my friends do really well. And I don't know if you remember this roster back then, but they were really good. They used to win tournaments a lot. They won like 5 or 6 tournaments in the first, couple months. And then I actually got laid off from my job because of COVID.
Right.
Yeah, and it was like I was working in security for Bank of America, and our contract ended, like the security contract ended, and they weren't renewing it. So it's like everybody that I worked with all just got fired all at once, basically. And then I hit up Mike and I was like, hey, you guys still need a coach? And I came in for a trial. I trialed for probably like a month and a half. It was a pretty long trial, and eventually they agreed to sign me, and so be it. There we are.
That's cool.
I'm blanking a little bit, but they were Complexity back then, right? They got picked up pretty early on that.
They got signed in July.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was right when the game went full, like not in beta anymore. They got signed.
Awesome. So you kind of just like instantly made that jump from getting laid off into becoming a coach and getting signed.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty quick. Well, because one thing that was nice is because I was working in security, I was getting hazard pay, so I wasn't in like a rush to get right back into a new job. I was like, I can kind of chill for a couple months if I have to. Like if I don't get signed for 2 months or whatever, and it doesn't work out, I'm not really losing anything. I wasn't strapped for cash at the time, so yeah, it did just kind of work out at the end.
Sweet.
So for me, like my history is not that long.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. It's just I haven't played for a shorter time. So I started playing CS:GO casually, and I got into like ESCA. Like I was a pug stomper. Like I was like rank G, all that. Never made rank S, but so I was just like playing pugs in CS, and around season 25, I think I made like an open team, and I IGL'd for that team. I was probably 15 at the time or something, but
IGLing at 15.
yeah, I was just a young and like IGLing my friends, and we actually went pretty far. I think we went 5-1 or 6-1 in open playoffs. So we went to Maine around season 26, and I played a couple matches in Maine. But as I said before, like I was really into sports during high school. So it was my freshman year, and I basically like quit football to go play. I quit CS to go play football, right? And so all the way until COVID started, because I was out of school, there's no sports at the time. Like I wasn't playing FPS. Like I did not touch a computer. I would, just like, do my school, go to bed, like restart. So I would never play any FPS games. But then like I was out of school and Valorant dropped, and my brother showed me Valorant, and like I fell in love with the game basically right away because it had like the CS fundamentals, but all the abilities and stuff, it just made it like fresh every day. And having like the devs be like super into the game and like listening to the players, like that's something that Valve never did. So that was like something like really big for everyone, like having a dev team that really cares about the game. So I like, still now I'm still in quarantine, doing school from home. I have like a month left of school, but for the whole time I've been competing and doing like, my homeschool, and, I'm lucky to be in the position I am, because if it wasn't for something like that to happen, which is unfortunate, like COVID's obviously not a good thing, but I was able to stay at home and, pursue like a career in esports. So once I started playing Valorant, I got picked up by a team called Flow State, and that was the original team was like Orsos, Mud, Akula, and Complex. Some like tier 2 players, you might have heard of some of them, but um, and Orsos was the IGL for that team, and we were pretty good. Like we won a couple tournaments together. We got like second in a couple like $1,000 tournaments, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Orsos was the IGL, so he stepped down, and someone had to pick that up. So I picked up the IGL like spot for that team, and ever since then, that was probably like I was like a half IGL, like kind of everyone calm stuff on that team, but I was like kind of the main shot caller, so I got some experience doing that. And
Right.
then I got picked up by another team, another tier 2 team called Take Flight, and that was with I know you probably know them, Bossy, Denya.
Mm-hmm.
It was me, Bossy, Denya, Bude, and Simple. And so they wanted me to IGL for that team. So I tried doing that, and at first like I hated it. This is probably like 4 or 5 months ago. I hated it. I was like, I can't do this. Like I was making terrible reads. Like it was just hard. It was really stressful. But they told me like they had like faith in me and they really wanted me to keep doing it. So throughout like the couple weeks of practice, I just kept my mind focused. I started watching like a lot more VODs, a lot of pro teams, like trying to understand the game better, like a high level. And I just kept doing it. And like, naturally, like I felt every day I was getting better. And like I started making like some really good reads. We started winning tournaments, doing really good. So like my confidence basically like escalated really fast because I didn't really play the game like that much. I didn't play much CS, right? All these like ex MDL players getting signed that have like 10 years of experience, and I'm over here like I just got back into the game. So my confidence really started like escalating when I played those tournaments. I started winning. Um, and then from there, from Take Flight, we went back to Flow State because like I was kind of like gifted like that like orgless name because I had like a nice Twitter, so we kind of just went back to that. So we were Flow State again, and it was that same team, and I think we won like one tournament in December, like $1,000 tournament. But I got a lot of experience in that because we stuck with the same 5 roster for like probably like 3 or 4 months, like 3 months, I think, which most tier 2 teams like don't do. So when you have that much experience, like learning under people, like, the same team, you're just growing every day. You don't have to deal with like all the BS of like roster changes and stuff. Like you really develop as a player. And that's one thing for like these tier 2 players that are trying to like, crack tier 1. Like they always make these roster changes after like not winning, even for like a month of not winning. They think it's the best decision to make a roster change, and that's just in reality, that's not true. Like we went 2 months without winning anything, and
Mm-hmm.
then we finally hit that point and we finally started like getting top 2s, top 4s, and like we started getting our names out there. And the way I got on complexity is we played in like a $10,000 tournament on Flow State when I was on Flow State, and we ended up upsetting complexity at the time. And I think after that day, I think Corey or Ruin followed me on Twitter, or it was Mirko. I think it was Ruin followed me on Twitter, and he just hit me with like a, "Oh, nice job today. Like,
I think it was
you guys
me.
looked well." Yeah. So after that, I was like, "Oh, okay. Like that means a lot." Coming from a professional coach, I was like, "Holy!" Like he complimented us. Like that felt really good. So after that, like let's fast forward like 3 weeks after that tournament, we got fourth place actually. We had to play big frames in top 4, and we
Mm-hmm.
ended up losing I think 1-2. It was heartbreaking because we beat them 13-4 on the first map, and then we got like reverse sweep. So it was really heartbreaking, and I went through like a tough time because I was like, dude, like I psyched myself up so much for that tournament because it was like $10,000. uh, we ended up falling short. So after that, around 3 weeks later, after that tournament, the team was kind of like in a hump, and like people were getting, like offers from other teams, and so we kind of decided to like take a break or just disband because like a lot of people just kept going back and forth with like team offers, like paid opportunities. So we're like, we can't do this off and on thing. Like we should just disband. It's not going to work out. So I went about 1 week teamless, and then complexity manager Mirko hit me up on Twitter, and he was like, "Hey, like we've been scouting you for a while. If you wanted to come, like trial with us." So I was super excited when that first happened. I was really like blessed for the opportunity.
I saw a
So,
tweet about your trial about right clicking the deeg.
oh man, okay. Look,
Is there a
so
background behind that?
so all right, it was split right in a one-on-one, and I was retaking A on split, and like the pink white like the battle pass skin for the classic and the deagle, how it's like pink, white, like the colorful one.
Mhm.
It's for like the Stinger, the Deagle, and the Classic. So
Yeah.
I always had that Classic equipped, right? And I picked up a Deagle, and I don't remember picking up the Deagle ever. And it was the same color as the Classic. I'm focused on shooting the guy, and I'm spamming my right click button, staring at him, and he has like 10 HP. And I'm just like, wait, my gun's not shooting. I'm right clicking. And like, you have a deagle. And I died, right? And I was like, no, I don't. Like, there's no way. I don't have a deagle. So I take a clip, I go back and I watch it, and I had a deagle. And I was like, oh my, I'm cut, dude. I'm done. So after that, I was like, shit, like I messed up. But
Yeah.
you know, it was just like a small mistake, like it happens, right? So yeah, like time goes by. Sorry, it's getting dark, but time goes by and I end up playing for the VCT with Complexity, and we ended up falling short to I think it was spot up at the time, but we only had like 1 week of practice, and you know we were making progress like every day, but it just wasn't enough at the time. So I got lucky and I continued trialing for the next like month, and you know progress was being seen like every week, and we were getting better every week. So about I would say like a month ago, that's when I officially got like right before the boot camp, like maybe like a week before the boot camp is when like I was like officially like signed as a player under the org, but I was trialing with them for like a month or so.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of how. And then to sum it up, like now you know, still the same player I was. Like I'm still learning every day. Like I'm not some like a lot of people have like a stigma of IGLs being like you know brainiac, like insane smart, but like the game is a lot more simple than that in my opinion. And I'm still learning like a lot of stuff every day. I'm watching VODs every day, practice. So you know I can't wait for the future because I see myself becoming like a top IGL soon, just by the progress I've been
Oh
making
yeah, man.
every day. Yeah.
Rune, when it comes to like trying out IGLs, how does that like? Did you try Valorant originally as an IGL, or you kind of just like we have these
No, we
crafts
did try him
already?
out as an IGL, yeah. So like the way it went with Valen, like he's a very fast learner. And that was the main thing I wanted. I was like, this is a young kid, he's got insane firepower, and he's willing to IGL. Like that's
Mhm.
kind of a rare combination. It doesn't really happen that often. Normally people are kind of shoehorned into being an IGL because they can't shoot back as well. I was that guy. Like I could op and I could IGL, and those were the two things I could do. If you wanted me to be like a support rifler or an entry fragger, I was not good at that. Um, so it's like, okay, this kid can actually shoot. Like he's really talented individually, and he wants the IGL. So let's give him a shot. And yeah, we played with him for a week. Our first tournament didn't go great. I think we did lose to spot up, or we lost to somebody. And then like we talked to the team, and I basically like me and everyone else on Complexity all had like a meeting without Valen, and I was like, okay, what are our main takeaways from this tournament that we want Valen to like improve on, that we could get better at doing? And we had like a list of stuff, and then so Monday came, and I was like, okay, this is everything we need you to work on. Like we're a little too predictable. We're not calling stuff the same that we do in practice. Like there were like 3 or 4 points that I was like, okay, this is exactly what I need you to work on. And then over that next week we improved like a ton. Like we got in, it was literally like 4 or 5 days of practice, and we all the stuff that we had talked about had been like almost fixed completely. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's really hard to do. Like
Right.
it's hard to take criticism and just immediately be like, okay, I have the answer, like let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Valance specifically, like when we first tried him out, and I would recommend this to any IGL who's trying out for like a team that maybe is like a tier higher, or you know, you want to make a good impression. The first thing that happened on Valent's first day is we hopped into Discord and we went on Valoplant .gg, the website where you can like you know make your strats and stuff.
Mhm.
We went
Mhm.
over stuff for like 2 hours with Valen. Like he had all these ideas already. Like he already had all the defaults he liked. He had like stuff prepared on like 3 or 4 different maps for us to just go over on day one, basically. And we spread it out over a couple days because that's a lot to do in one day.
Right.
But it was a good impression because like, okay, this kid's not lazy. Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
came prepared, he did his homework, he knew it was going to be expected of him, and he showed up. But yeah, mainly just like how quickly he fixed stuff, where it's like, hey, you know, we're kind of predictable on this map. Like we kind of get into this pattern of like go A, go B, go A, go B. And it's like, oh, okay, once he knew it was a problem, it's like we kind of fixed it. Like it's not really, I mean, it happens sometimes, but it's not really an issue anymore. And
Right.
that was more what I was like looking for. It's like obviously Valen, there are some like I don't know, maybe bigger name IGLs we could have potentially gotten. But it's like, okay, is there going to work out as well in the long term as someone like Valyn, who's 18, who's has great, great individual stats, but is just a high performing player who can learn and is obviously demonstrated like a good work ethic? I feel like I'd much rather take the chance on someone like Valyn.
Yeah, 100%. I think I also think IGLs are very undervalued in the scene. They don't a lot of especially a lot of like free agent teams that form, which is just the majority of the scene.
Right.
They don't seem to understand the value of a true IGL. Or the value of an IGL in general, because they may have a leader on the team, or someone that calls and or something like that. But I think people all want to go play Rays, or they all want to go play Jet. But the reality is they have to, from my perspective, really focus on, if they want to be an IGO, focus on how to just also you have to read the game properly. Obviously, you have to understand the game, but the leadership quality that goes into being an in-game leader, Valyn's personality, from what I've talked to him, he's got really good personality. He's a good leader. He's a good people person. And that's not something you find in a lot of players, especially in esports, where you're not always around people. You're sitting in front of a screen, and the people that you are around are far enough away where they can't harm you if you are mean to them, right? And so to be a people person in esports, and be able to call properly, puts this perfect IGL together that a lot of people need to, especially, even, it doesn't matter how old you are, in my opinion. It's just kind of, one, how mature you are, and also how much you're willing to really learn, and grow yourself. And a lot of people have this stigma as well that an IGL can't shoot. You know what I mean? But you can be an IGL that can shoot and be a good leader.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like one or the other. But yeah, I think IGLs are very undervalued in the scene right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Val, the first day you showed up, did you like have a playbook ready, or were you just like, "Oh, this is just all in my head, guys. Let me just get it out and like just throwing stuff around on Valorant"?
So I took a lot of the basic ideas because I feel like most IGLs kind of have their own fundamentals of how they like to run. Like, you could put any IGL on any team, and if you really dissect their gameplay, you can kind of tell it's like the similar patterns, right? How they call, like their pacing, when they switch it up, etc. So I took my basic knowledge of what I've been running in the tier 2 scene, and I basically instantly made like a little playbook in my head, but more so like I just was ready because I know it was going to be expected of me, and I wanted to make a good first impression. So I really like focused up, and I spent like the whole night prior to my trial like figuring out like, okay, every single map, this is what I like to do default wise, anti ecos, like different strats, different setups, and basically just like off the top of my head, I was just like flowing. Like in the website, I was just showing stuff. Some things weren't that well, and we like adjusted them together. Some things were really good, and people liked it. And it's funny though, because when I actually got into the server, right, all these things that worked very good in like these tier 2 tournaments, like VCSs, or like little 5 or 10Ks, all these strats that, in my opinion, like during my experience, worked so well, they were getting demolished in versus these top 5, top 10 teams, because
Yeah.
they're every little detail that you leave open, they will find and they will like abuse, right? So the amount that I've learned in the last 2 like 3 months being with complexity is like probably the entire, like, since I started playing the game. Like, playing these top 5, top 10 teams for like, every day, 6 scrims a day, every day, you learn a lot and you really understand.
Right.
So a lot of my, like, if you watch how I used to call before versus now, it's actually a lot different. And that's one thing I wasn't expecting. Uh but it was shocking, but and it was a challenge because having your entire playbook and all your strats and everything just be complete worthless at this level, it's like, you got to start over. But you got to put that work in, and I figured it out, and here we are today. So yeah.
So like kind of on that topic, I had a question like, a lot of things I hear from T2 players, like in scrims, is them complaining these guys are playing like weirdos, these guys are playing like freaks. Do you guys play differently if you think like a team is like a lower level at all? Like, are you guys ready for like these guys doing weird plays or all, or like is your play just so solid that they're gonna play weird, it's punished automatically?
So that's one thing we struggled with at first. Like very first, when I first joined in, we were scrimming like these top 5, top 10 teams. So we were being like super, what's the word, like super like perfect, right, in a sense. Like
Yeah.
we were trying to be perfect. And
Rigid.
when you try to be perfect, yeah, rigid. When you try to be perfect and rigid versus like a tier 2 team who's just running it down on you, it's not going to work out. So we realized that. We played in like a small tournament and we literally got destroyed. Like, but ever since then we kind of understood like, okay, we're kind of playing, we're kind of taking things the wrong way. And that was a big lesson for me to understand, like there's different ways to play against teams. So in scrims, like we treat every team the same until we're forced to like adjust, right? Like if a team is just sprinting at you every round, like a tier 2 team, like you can't really do anything besides like play a default and hold, right? Um, so in terms of like these random plays, like we're pretty used to it now. And some top 5, top 10 teams actually do have that type of style. They're a bit more coordinated and they understand the game better, but they are very aggressive and they'll just do random peeks at you at all times.
Right.
So you still get that practice versus like, very good teams. And then you play a team like, Envy, who is every step they take is calculated and like they're just playing slow and super methodical. You can really see the difference, but at the same time, like your core, like your own team's core value, like what you guys are running still works. You just have to take minor adjustments versus like a super aggressive versus like really passive team.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, do you guys like? So like you said, you guys kind of just go into the game and you're like, okay, we're just gonna play our game. If we have to adjust, we'll adjust. Is that
Yeah,
about
I
right?
mean, so in scrims, like we don't adjust as much because scrims you're trying to practice what you've been
Got
practicing
it.
over the week, what you
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you've been trying to learn, your weaknesses. So if we think like we need to adjust, and it's at the same time it's also good to make adjustments in scrims, but don't like anti-strat teams. Like that's weird and you're not getting
Right.
any value out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But making adjustments in real time during scrims will actually help you make those same adjustments in a match. You understand like, okay, when this team is doing this versus you, this is kind of what you have to respond with. So that's kind of how I take scrims. I try to identify like why we're losing rounds, how we're losing rounds, and try to give the answer to that. But I'll never just like hard anti-strat a team. I think that's pretty useless and it doesn't really help you at all. So yeah, we kind of just go into there and we do our own thing.
Um,
Right.
just a kind of a chat question. They said, what's your opinion on entry slash duelist IGL? Because some people do, they like to play a Jet or a Raze and IGL at the same time.
Um, my opinion on it is I think it's doable, but you have to be very like dynamic because your aggressive play on duelist, you don't want that to translate into your calls, right? Just because as a duelist you see an opening for a kill doesn't translate to, oh guys, I have a kill, everyone come B now, drop what you're doing. Like you can kind of understand like if a Jet has a kill lined up soon and he's going for that play and he's IGLing, he needs to understand like his team is still defaulting and you can't kind of put that same pressure on your other team like, oh, I'm about to get this kill, let's regroup and rush. You have to still be a passive player in a sense, like in your brain. Like you still have to understand your team is trying to work a map, work a default where they might be on like Omen or Astra, and they're a lot more passive than you. So they might be at like the stage 1 of their default where you're about to like you're at stage 3, you're about to get the kill, you're about to entry.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of that, and also you're going to be dying first a lot. So a lot of teams they kind of adjust to like a secondary caller when the IGL is dead. I know that was like a big thing in CS:GO as well. Like once the IGL is dead, someone kind of takes over that leadership role,
Mm-hmm.
whoever's alive, and kind of dictates the round. But if you're an entry fragger and you're doing that, I believe even when you're dead, you have to be hyper focused in the match and you have to still call for your team because a lot of times you're just going to get first blood, and if your team's lacking that leadership, that could translate to like, okay, every time I die, now my team's lost. So you have to kind of take over
Hmm.
the like both roles.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely weird. You can make it work. You can make anything work. Like if you're good enough at doing it, like you could definitely make it work. But I would say less than ideal is exactly how I would put it. Especially with like mid rounding is like Valyn said, you need like a secondary caller almost. And if you're gonna do that, I feel like you just have the secondary caller become the primary caller and let your duelist be a duelist. Like that's kind of
Right.
how I would treat it. Um, Being alive in mid round for a good IGL, that's when your value as a good IGL really shows. Like the mid-round decision making separates the boys from the men in a sense. Like the really good teams make amazing decisions in really hard situations. That's what separates 100 Thieves and Envy and those teams from and the reason why players like Hazed and Cutler, statistically maybe not amazing, but why they have so much value is I guarantee they contribute so much to that mid-round calling. Um, so I definitely think that's like, especially in Valorant, it's like you need to be on your toes. So much stuff can go wrong.
Yeah.
Like you could be like you're setting up to do like an exec, and then they just raw Sova ult you, and people get pushed out of position, and crazy stuff starts happening, and you just got to adjust. You just got to roll with it. So being a duelist IGL, I feel like I think Screwface did it with Kuki Koalas. He's the main one that I'm aware of, and they did good. They had really good results. So I'm sure, and Screwface is a good player. He's talented, so I'm sure it's possible. But I wouldn't want to build a team like that. I don't think that's like sustainable. Also, I feel like it's hard to have diversity in your tactics when, like, if you're a Jet Opper and you're the IGL, it's kind of the thing like when you're a Hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Like the answer to every problem isn't just dashing and killing people.
Yeah.
Like there's other solutions
well
that like
said.
are harder to come up with.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And also just to add on, I was gonna say like when you're on a controller, right, or even like a sentinel, it allows you when you're IGLing to kind of take a step back from having to be hyper aware about corner peaks, like people's like wide peeking you, because most of the time your Omen, your Astra, your Sentinels are not very aggressive in their defaults. So that kind of gives you time to kind of lay back and like look at the map and really understand like what's going on and try to make a decision before you take a fight. When you're on like Raze, Phoenix, Jet, you're constantly looking for a fight and you're trying to look for that opener for your team. So you don't have much time to. It'd be very hard, I would say, to be hyper focused on on entry fragging and trying to like macro your team in terms of like what map control you want to take, when you want them to fall back, when you want to exec, etc. So that's just one thing I wanted to add it on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Ruin, for you, I had a question kind of about your coaching style. I know, like,
Sure.
in esports right now, no one really knows what coaches do. Like, are you strat guys, like, has all the strats? Are you, like, telling people, like, what to eat, when to sleep? Are you, like, making sure everyone's being nice to each other and not tilting or whatever, like, managing their attitudes? What exactly do you do, and, like, what does your day look like, I guess?
Right. So I'm mostly like a tactical coach for the team. We do have a sports psychologist. His name is Ricky. He's fantastic. So he handles mostly the stuff of like, hey, I feel like I don't have enough energy during matches. Like he'll be like, okay, we can work on your diet and do all this other stuff and make sure you're getting enough sleep at night. And if you can't sleep at night, here's all these meditation tactics you can do. And here's all this research that's been done. That's amazing. Ricky really helps in that regard. So I'm able to focus mostly. I have been that guy before because my degree's in psychology. I have a bachelor's, so like I know like a little bit about that stuff, and I can find research on it. Like if I needed to find something, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But having Ricky handle that really helps, and I feel like that's one of the benefits of a tier 1 org is we actually like my responsibilities are very distributed. Like we have a manager who finds tournaments for us and basically operates our day-to-day practice. Like he schedules our scrims, he manages all the sponsor stuff, everything like that I don't have to worry about. And then we have Ricky who handles the out of game stuff for the team and does all that, and I help out with that when I have to, because obviously I spend a lot more time with the players, so when I feel like I can help out, I try to. But my primary focus is in game. I mostly try to identify and fix mistakes. I develop game plans for the other, like when we're playing a team like Gen G, like I'll develop a game plan. Um, I'll try to tell people like tendencies. I do a little bit of anti-stratting because I feel like anti-stratting is a little in Valorant. It's kind of hard because you're kind of doing different things every round. You're really not like in CS. You can get away with having like 1 or 2 defaults and then a couple execs, and you're pretty much set. Valorant, you could run a different strat every round and it would be good. Like the combinations are endless for Valorant. So I try to pick up on tendencies of other teams and all that stuff. And then in scrims, I'm taking note of things that we're doing particularly poorly at, or that we're doing exceptionally well, and try to compliment people. Try to build up my teammates and stuff. But sometimes if stuff's not going well, like we have a problem right now that we're working on where we overpeak 3v1 we'd like try to get the round over with a little too hastily. And it happened once in a tournament. In the tournament we just won, we lost a pistol round like that. And then yesterday I saw it in a scrim, and I was like, guys, we cannot, like, I talked about it for like 20 minutes after practice, like 3v1s, we cannot throw them. Like the first guy who peaked is the problem. Like, I always say, like, these are rounds where we could go AFK and we'd win the round. Like we have such a strong position, and like in this particular instance, like we had the bomb down and we had it controlled, we're on defense, and we just peaked and lost. And it's like, okay, like that can, like, that 100 out of 100 times that should never happen.
Right.
We should win that round 100 out of 100 times. So normally I try, like, if there's things like that where it's like people kind of know they shouldn't do it, but like they feel like, well, we'll just get this over with, like I'll just peek and kill him quick, like no problem. I try to I'm working on that right now with the team. But in general, it's just like, yeah, solving problems, anti-stratting opponents, helping out Valyn with like game plans and coming up with new defaults and stuff. Like if we run something in practice and it gets completely destroyed and shut down, it's like, okay, well, is the whole idea bad, or do we just have to tweak one or two things and it'll run a lot smoother? That's kind of, I would say, most of what I do.
Got it. And are you guys implementing new strategy every day and just trying stuff, or just making trying to make stuff you've already done work, or are you just like, do you have certain days where you focus on certain things at all? Or is
It's day to day. I would say it just
Yeah.
depends what we need at the time. Like right now, we're kind of just rolling with what we have and just improving on that. We do have to eventually spend more time on Breeze. That's around the corner. We did play a match on it and we won, but we won mostly because of our skill and not because of like, we didn't have crazy strats or anything. We just kind of outshot them.
Yeah.
We do have some stuff for Breeze, but that adding a whole map into the pool, because we're kind of a team that plays the off maps, right? Like we're a split icebox, like ascent team that, like, those are our bread and butter. And then it's like, okay, Breeze, if we make it so people can't ban icebox against us and they have to ban Breeze, that makes our lives 1,000 times easier. Like we'll play anybody on icebox. Like we do lose the map occasionally. Like we lost it to Cosmic Divide in overtime, I think, and we lost it to Sonics in overtime. Both of those matches, we like, at least the Cosmic Divide one, we were pretty solidly in control, and we kind of let that slip away. And then the Sonics one, we had kind of a bad individual performance from a couple different players on that particular series, and we've been playing. It was like our third best of 3 that day. Like there are a lot of factors that go into that. Where like we hadn't been used to playing that many games in a day. I think that might have been the first time we've ever played 3 best of 3s in a day.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a
It's a lot of energy.
especially because the way it always works is you win your first best of 3. Like we'll play like I don't know, like a random team, and we'll beat them like 13-1, 13-2. We'll have like an hour and a half, and then we'll play another best of 3. And then what actually happened in that series was we won it 2-0, but then that was when Renegades and Sonic went to like 5 overtimes on map 3. So we won our set 2-0, and we're kind of just waiting. We still end up waiting like another hour for them to finish because they went to so many overtimes on bind. And then we like they wanted to break. Sonic wanted to break, obviously. Like they'd been playing all day too. They took like a 20 or 30-minute break to get dinner and eat and relax a bit. So it's like, holy, like we're like
still iced out.
Yeah, exactly. And then we you start slow, and it's Valorant's unforgiving. You lose pistol, you lose first gun, you're down 6-0 before you blink.
Yeah.
Right.
Like 100%. Yeah. Question, another chat question, and this is something I was kind of wondering with the new timeout features, tactical timeout features, where you're frozen and you get what I believe 60 seconds.
Pauses, 60 seconds.
The question is, what do you normally say during a timeout? Like who's talking? What's going to be going on during those new timeouts? Obviously, hopefully tournaments implement them right away, because I think they're necessary for any sport. A timeout is great. I think you should use them. But what is your opinion on them, and what would you be saying, both, either of you saying during that situation?
So there's a couple ways you can use like a timeout. Obviously, if your strategy is not working and um, you know, everything you're calling feels like nothing's working and you need a new game plan, you need some time to develop that game plan and you need to explain it to your teammates. So we'll be down like uh you know, 11-6, 11-7 or something, and you can call a new game plan in a timeout and completely switch the game around. And also, so that's one thing is those timeouts, like the coach and the IGL are talking, people are giving feedback. They're like saying this will work, this might not work. This is where the people are playing. You're basically taking time to identify the entire map because you feel lost. Nothing you're doing is working, and you're trying to like rediscover and take a different approach to the map before it's too late. So you're trying to get a different approach. And at the same time, the other thing for the timeout is you basically ice the other team because like I believe in icing. Like when people are feeling hot, when people are just running it down on you, getting 3 kills every time, they don't
Yeah.
care. Like they're just out shooting you. You could take that time to take a timeout, relax, like get your heart rate back. Like it's just a game. You're chilling, and then boom, once you're chilling, they're iced out. Like even playing field, it feels fine. Like we've had a match where we might be down, like I think we were down 11-7 on Icebox in that 5K most recently. I think we took a timeout at 11-7, and we won every round, and we got 12-11, and then we went to OT. We lost the last round, unfortunately, but
Hmm.
we took it to OT after being down 11-7 after I felt like nothing was working, and we just took a different approach, and we made it to the overtime, and we just closed it out. So, timeouts are very crucial, and I feel like teams who are down like 11-5, 11-6, and you're not taking a timeout, it feels like you don't really want it enough. Like you should always be using your timeouts to try to reevaluate and try to take a new approach just to see like maybe you can pull off the miracle and get like 6 in a row. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so and also like for your own players, like if you're feeling overwhelmed, like they're just a style that you're not used to, and you're feeling overwhelmed, and like you got to kind of relax. Like it's also a good time where you can take a minute to just like breathe and relax and just reevaluate your own game plan. So yeah, that's two ways I see.
Do you guys have anything like specific when you're taking that time out and trying to chill? Like any particular deep breathing, or you just like hands off the keyboard, kind of just like breathe, talk? What do you guys like do for that exactly?
That's normally what I say. Yeah, like it depends. I'll call a timeout like that if I feel like we're losing rounds because people are just whiffing like easy kills. Normally, so I guess for my process with timeouts, normally I know that I want to call one a couple rounds in advance. But I'll be like we'll be down like 4-0, and then depending on how those rounds played out, I'll be like, okay, if we don't win a round and we like lose again and then have to save and then it's 6-0, then at that point I'm like, okay, we need to pause. Like we gotta change something up. We just don't have the rounds to play with. Um, but then it's like, okay, if we start, sometimes we just need a couple rounds. Like sometimes you just start slow. So it's like, okay, we're down
Yeah.
4-0, but then it's like, okay, now it's 4-2, 4-3, and then maybe it goes to 5-3. Then it's like, okay, well, I probably don't need a timeout now. I have
Mm-hmm.
to be a little more strategic with it because you only get one in most tournaments.
Right.
They give you one timeout for the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if they're giving us two, I mean, I get one per half at least. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, I feel like I'll call a lot more.
Yeah, and
But
I
with the
think.
changes, you said you get frozen in freeze time now, right? Like you can't move.
Well, so I think yeah, I think you're just frozen, which is a little weird, but
It is weird.
And you have to call it the
So
round before as well. You can't call it like as
yeah,
the round starting, the freeze time. You have to call it the round
what?
before.
it doesn't
Yeah.
make a lot of sense, but
Oh.
they might change
Well,
it. Who
that's not a
knows?
big deal then, at least. Like, at least, because what I was gonna say is like right now it's like common courtesy to like let the freeze time run down to like 10 seconds and then call your pause, so
Right.
that you're not waiting like another minute or 30, 40 seconds,
Yeah.
however long
Yeah.
the freeze time is. So it's like, okay, we just won't do that. We'll just call it immediately. We'll stay frozen and spawn, and then we'll make our adjustment. Then you don't have to worry about it. It kind of nullifies it. But if you've called the round before, that's I don't know how I feel about that. That's kind of weird.
I don't really like it either.
Yeah, it's very strange for sure. If you're talking about regular sports, a lot of teams they it tied 12-12, right? Most games, for some reason, Valorant always ends up 12-12. Like most of the time,
Yeah,
12-12,
it
right?
does.
And mostly because you have to win by two, and everybody's back and forth. But at that point, are you saving that timeout for that 12-12 scenario? Trying to anyway, like almost like a game winner or a buzzer beater, or maybe even the 13-12 to ice the other team. And what kind of scenario are you looking to use that last timeout?
So I have a couple examples because we actually have used it in a lot of different ways recently. There was a against who did we play in the TLC against them on Haven? We brought it to 11-11 and then we won I think 12-11 and then we paused. because we won, and I think we won in just like we were in like a 3-on-5, and like all 5 of them died in like a second. We like got into B, and we killed all the B and Acon guys like instantly, and they just all died. It's like, okay, we're pausing here to close out the map, and then my thought process was they're gonna overthink this pause. Like we don't have to change anything, but they might overthink it because we're pausing on match point. And let's let them be mad at each other a little bit. Let's let them argue about who should have been peeking what and why no trades happened. Like let's let them stew on that for a second. So that's probably like the least common way that I do use it, but like that's what I was thinking at the time. I'm pretty sure it was Teal Team on Haven that we did that. I don't know if you remember, Jake, but yeah. And then on split, we also paused because I think we were down 6-10. I don't like pausing after like I will if I have to, but like I don't like pausing after like 11 because I feel like you're too late. And I've done this before where like I'm waiting for like the right opportunity and then I miss it and then I can't pause anymore. Like we're on 12 points and we're losing. Where it's like, okay, so like 11 is where if I feel like we're not in control of the game, like 11 is really where I'm trying to pause. So it's like I think with them we were down 10-5 or 10-6. We brought it back to like
10-5.
yeah. And then we brought it back to like 9-10 and then we lost a round and then I paused. It's like, okay, let's not let this slip away. Let's get back in control, make whatever adjustment. Again, let them overthink a little bit. Let them think about what we're trying to talk about. And sometimes you don't even change anything. Sometimes it's like one person just misses a trade and that's the round. And that's just how the game works. So if you're in attack pause, it doesn't necessarily mean like I'm gonna change like the game plan. It could just be like, hey guys, like, we're still okay. Everything's going fine. Take a deep breath, center yourself a little bit and you get your mind focused for the next time. It's like I do that now when I see people crouch spraying a lot. I see a lot of crouch spraying. I'm trying to hammer that home too, where it's like, just shoot the guy in the head. Don't, this is a run and gun game. If anything, if you're gonna, don't crouch. If anything, just start running. If you're losing the fight, just shoot while you're running away.
True.
Sadly true. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not CS. Like, don't crouch at him. Just hold W.
Yeah. Probably last question here. Do you guys think the game is ever like, does it ever feel random or ever like based on like one guy just kind of going off and like individually being insane, just kind of taking over the game at all? Or do you feel like teamwork is kind of more important?
Well, if you want consistency, your teamwork is always going to be more important. But sometimes there's a guy who drops 35 to 40 kills on you on Reyna, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. No matter the way I see the game is, you can have the most perfect call in that specific moment, but if they headshot you, it's done. So at the end of the day, you need to hit your shots. So that's one thing. Like you see a lot of these, even in like some pro teams, great IGLs, but they're getting dropped because they're not hitting shots. At the end of the day, it's an FPS game. You have to hit your shot. So you can break any strat. Any strat can be broken by hitting a shot, like an insane shot. And if you have a guy doing that throughout the entire match on you, it feels like impossible, right? They're on a roll, and they're so confident. They're taking every duel they want, and if they're winning like 80% of them, it's just like you're starting 4v5 every round. So that's why I think like for us, like on complexity, our player like that is probably J. Cruel, because he's on the jet op role, and if he's on point on jet opping, like there's some games where the
He's
other
a
team just can't
nightmare.
do anything. He's a nightmare to deal with. The guy's everywhere. It feels like he's literally everywhere. It feels like he has every single read on you, and he's just getting like he's just pushing your spawn and getting through with the op. Like it's just nothing you can do at that point. So yeah, I feel like the game is pretty random in that terms.
Do you guys ever like chastise J. Cruel for going a little bit too crazy and like not getting stuff done, or just like go do it?
I have to sometimes. Yeah, sometimes I have to drop the hammer down. But
So-
it's one of those. It's a very fine. It's a very fine line where like if we're gonna win the round and he does it, then I feel like he should lay off a bit. If we're in a losing situation and he tries to make something happen, so be it, right? You're a star player. That's what you do. Like there's I mean, it was a famous clip when he posted it on Icebox where he got a sick 4K with knives, where he just runs out heaven and just one knifes like 4 people. And we were in like a 3-on-5 at that point. Both of our A players had died. He had rotated in from mid, and he just walks out heaven, one knifes the first guy, and then just peeks 3 more and kills all of them. It's like you can't teach that. Like sometimes it's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Also, like just to add on, From like an IGL perspective, like I don't like restricting my players. I don't like microing my players at all. So in like a match setting, like I'll never get mad at someone for going for more. Like yeah, it might be like it's not the right
Yeah.
play. It's not the right play, but you can't like shut down someone's confidence like that.
No.
Like if and it there's a very like Ruin said, a very fine line. Like if you're on a 3-on-3 situation, um, rushing their spawn and trying to get the last three, obviously you're gonna get grilled. Like that's a horrible play, right? But if you just double entry and it's 5-on-3, just let the guy go. Let him do his thing. Like, yeah, he could probably secure the round by just sitting there, but like when your star player's feeling it and you let him like feel unleashed, like that's when you really see the maximum potential in in your players. You gotta let them be free sometimes, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've made that mistake in my past coaching. When I was on COG Academy, I remember I was coaching actually like an insane lineup. I had Infinite, Exotic, a Proto, DJ, and this guy Char, if you know him from CS. He was another MDL IGL forever. We got relegated. And I remember like one of my big takeaways from that season was like I completely mishandled coaching Infinite. I was way too hard on him when he was aggressive. I was trying to make him into a player that he wasn't.
Yeah.
Like I wanted him to be this like rocks because his aim was absolutely insane. So I wanted him to be like Neo or Forrest, where they're just so smart and they're just like the aim is great, but I wanted him to be really smart too. And I was like, okay, like don't just take the easy way out. Like don't just try to aim duel everybody you see and just like I said, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Like try to solve your problems tactically and with like intelligence instead of just out shooting people. And it kind of killed his confidence. Like I was too hard on him in that regard, and
Right.
it didn't fit the team, and it just didn't work out. And I just remember like that's like one of my like biggest fuck ups as a coach back in the day is like I completely mishandled that situation. So now with a player like Jake Rule, it's like okay, yeah, he's insane. I just got to let the guy do his thing. Like
Yeah.
like I said, and sometimes in like 3-on-1s he will overpeak, and sometimes that's a problem. But it's I try very hard not to over like criticize him because what he does, his X factor that he brings is so important. It's
Right.
so valuable.
With players like that, I definitely noticed if you get them thinking too much or like not fully confident and whenever they want to
Yeah,
slay,
it just
they
yeah
lose
it
like the
shreds their
killer instinct.
confidence.
Yeah.
And you want them to be a beast. You want them to be
Right.
unleashed. Like if every time they peak they're getting a kill, it's like well just keep peaking. Like go for it.
Yeah. For sure.
Um, I guess kind of the last thing here really is there anything that both of you can touch on this subject? What is the biggest thing that you would give advice to for the up and coming Valorant players and the people that are trying to make it pro? Right? What is that? What is the best advice you can give them really, so they can learn from that and grow from that?
Well, I can speak from experience because I was a 2-2 player. Like playing in the weekly like VCSs and stuff. I so I can kind of speak from my own experience. The biggest thing is like you got to stop caring about your tournament wins. That shit does not matter at all. Like it matters like but at the end of the day, like you have to develop yourself as a player, as a team player. And just because your team is not winning, one out of two tournaments you play, like doesn't mean you guys have to disband, right? Try to stick with your team, try to develop your team. You're gonna learn a lot developing a team than trying to team hop to the best roster. Because when you're trying to rebuild, like reassess a team, right, to try to be better, you're not only like, taking a step back and thinking about the game at a deeper level to try to like understand your own problems, which is going to help you, but you're doing that for like your own skill too. You're not just like team hopping like, "Oh yeah, I'm the best player on this team. I'm just going to leave and try to find another." But you're really trying to take that step back and you're going to, find that leadership role and you're going to like improve a lot. So that's the first thing is like try not to team hop and really try to like VOD review and reassess your team. That's going to get you a lot of experience. Um Two is like be consistent. Like a lot of orgs, they want players who, are consistent in tournaments. They don't want just like some 50-50 player who might drop 30 on you, but might drop like 5, right? Try to work on your consistency. And that's a lot more than just in-game stuff. Consistency means you have like a proper sleep schedule, working out, meditating, all that stuff outside of the game will translate into your in-game consistency, which is super important, which my old coach Hua, which coaches for Kuki Koalas, he kind of made me understand that. He was like a big performance coach for me. So he made me understand that factor. And once you get those two things down, consistency and trying to reevaluate yourself and become better, that's when you're really gonna break that, like, tier one level. That's when you're gonna like become the best player you can be.
Yeah,
So
well
that's
said.
my
Okay.
advice.
Absolutely. For me, I guess like the biggest thing that holds people back, I think, in any tier, even there are pros who have this issue, is the goal being like winning whatever you're playing. It's like the goal should always be to just keep improving. And then if you improve enough, the wins happen. Like the goal is never just to
All right.
win. Like you can win in a bad way where you didn't learn anything. And not only maybe you didn't learn anything, but you actually learned bad things. Like you might have to undo. Like that's also why, I mean, not to hype him up too much. I don't want to get his ego out of control. But one of the things I like about Valyn is he doesn't have a lot of really bad habits that he learned grinding open for 10 years like some players did. Like sometimes you play at these lower levels for so long, you develop these really bad habits that like when you get to a level where I'm coaching you, I have to work to get that out of you. Like I
Yeah.
gotta make you unlearn some stuff. And so some play like Stewie 2K and Swag, like they got pro so quickly from being like in the intermediate level that like they didn't learn all these bad habits. They didn't have to, grind out 10 years of main to make it to premier and then go pro. They got right up there and they made it. So I would always say like focus more on just like every single like even ranked. This is why like queuing ranked people say is like worthless, but like you can if you play ranked the right way, you can take a lot from a ranked game. You can learn a lot.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one thing I always like if you don't have a team right now, you should get on a team as fast as possible. It doesn't matter how good or how bad you are. Start entering as many tournaments as you can, and then from those tournaments, start developing what you like to do. Like learn, like maybe you like a certain role, maybe you want a certain environment. Like learn what you like, and then once you have that, it's like okay, focus on improving every little thing. Like I felt like the thing that made me make the biggest jump in my skill when I was playing is like I kind of had this moment where like I was fixing all these little things, like little times where I would like over peak here. It's like, okay, next time I'm not going to do that. Or I maybe I needed to be more aggressive. Maybe my teammate needed help and I needed to be a little faster. Maybe I could have called something in a more clear way that my teammates would recognize faster. Like if you just yell flank, it's like, okay, where is everyone going to look? Like, is everyone going to look at the same spot? Or could you say he's B main? It's like, okay, that's a little more specific. People are going to know where to look now.
Mm.
All these little things, you'll eventually have kind of like they all come together and you'll level up. Like you'll just feel it one day. You're like, I'm a different player now. Like
It's
I'm
very
like
true. It's very
you'll just stop losing to people that you used to lose to. And it's like, what happened? Well, you just fixed a lot of stuff. Like the little things, they add up. These little mistakes lose you rounds all the time and you don't realize it. Like especially because we
Yeah.
don't have demos.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Once we get demos, it'll be a lot easier. But like you have to record your own VODs, watch your games back. Like anytime you die, well, this is like a free coaching lesson, but uh like every time you die, roll the clock back on the VOD 15 seconds. What could I have done differently to not die here? Like, what did my teammate need to do something to make me not die here? Like, so that if you're in your teammate's shoes next time, you can fix it. Like, did I need to be closer to my teammate? Did I need to say something? Did I need to reposition? Like, what were the signs? Like, what could I have seen ahead of time to know that this was going to go badly? Even ranked, like, all this stuff happens all the time. Like, you just learn it. You just go through it and the easiest way. I feel like it's just time. All you need, it's not hard. You just got to put the time in.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Beautiful
agree.
advice.
I mean, yeah, I genuinely enjoyed talking with you guys today. Learned a lot myself. I'm sure anybody that came into the stream today learned a lot. I appreciate you guys taking that time out of your day. I know you had practice today, and so just you came over here from practice and didn't get a rest or anything. So I appreciate you guys taking that time out and coming on to this
That was
podcast
awesome.
and
Thanks, guys.
podcast.
Yeah, thanks for
Thanks for
having
having
us.
us on.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's all. I appreciate you guys. Just want to. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm gonna end the stream now. I appreciate everybody coming to the stream today. Just if you guys ever see these guys in ranked or anything, thank them for helping the tier 2, tier 3 scene out in any way they can. But anyways, everybody have a good night. Appreciate you guys.